Alicia Termina Magentano attempts to wake up the unconscious Lloyd Frontra, urging him to open his eyes. She holds his hand and encourages him, mentioning his ability to absorb mana. She insists he should take her mana, as she can't afford to lose such a talented individual. Lloyd Frontra regains consciousness. The system window notifies that he has survived a fatal poisoning, unlocking a new custom mana heart skill option. Lloyd Frontra is puzzled, and the system window further informs him about complete poison resistance, making him immune to all types of poison. Additionally, he gains the ability to supercharge by absorbing large amounts of mana from his surroundings when his mana is depleted. He finds these skills to be super useful and smiles towards Alicia, who, in response, gets annoyed and hits him on the head. He holds his head and asks why she suddenly hit him. She explains that it was not about his actions, but rather his facial expression, prompting him to inquire about what his face ever did. She disregards that aside and asks if he is alright and can stand. He responds, saying he thinks that may be too much for him, contemplating that he needs to hurry and help Javier right now, considering it his only option. The system window notifies that he can absorb large amounts of mana from his surroundings when his mana is depleted. He begins to absorb his mana, and a huge light spreads all around. She gets shocked and asks what this is. His body is covered with mana light, and his supercharged power starts to absorb mana from his surroundings. She contemplates the tremendous absorption powers if his mana is absorbed this quickly. She calls out to him, wondering if he cannot hear her. She acknowledges that he saved her life, took all the mana he needed, and with it went to help his knight. He continues absorbing the mana from his surroundings, surprising her. He opens his eyes. The system window notifies him about a skill upgrade, revealing that his mana heart skill level has risen to the rank of a low-ranking sword expert. Additionally, he has unlocked a new custom mana heart skill option named Frenzy. It further explains that this Berserker mode can be used against a designated target for 60 seconds. In Berserker mode, strength, stamina, and reflexes are increased by 200%, and this can only be used once a day. He is surprised to see the status window, realizing that his body feels light, indicating that he must be fully charged. He contemplates that he's probably fighting the Sword Master all on his right now. He urgently tells Alicia Termina Magentano that they must hurry. She feels drained because her mana was absorbed by him. He wonders what happened and acknowledges that this is an annoying skill for others. She mentions that she will ask him for the details later, but apprehending Kyle is their biggest priority right now. She inquires if he could carry her. He puts on her coat and attempts to pick her up, expressing that it would be an honor. He reflects on how their dear queen is so down to earth, deciding to think about how to explain all this later. He carries her on his back and says, "Here they go." He quickly runs from there, thinking, "Wait for him, Javier, he is coming." She contemplates that he demonstrated demonstrable excellence in mana handling, but on his own, he is no match for the sword master Kyle. She believes she must build up his mana again and hopes he can fight at even 1/3 of his usual level. Meanwhile, Javier is surrounded by soldiers. Lloyd Frontra and Alicia Termina Magentano reach out and see him. Javier holds a sword in his hand, lit with magic, and thinks, "What's with this guy?" And that is an aura sword. He reflects that he has materialized it into a real sword and realizes he has taken down Kyle. Alicia moves forward and instructs the guards to lower their weapons. She explains that this evening, Commander Kyle of the Royal Guard made an attempt on Javier's life, and these two men braved extreme danger to save him. Javier thinks it's because she is his gravy train. Alicia commands everyone to show respect to these two heroes. She adds that every single person who attended tonight's banquet will be investigated for the security of the royal family, demanding everyone's complete cooperation. Lloyd Frontra asks Javier if he has become a sword master. Javier casually responds with a yes. Lloyd Frontra is surprised and asks how he can be so casual about it. Javier questions why he would think this is out of the ordinary. He explains that he encounters dangerous situations frequently, and this is the only way to fulfill his duty to protect him. Lloyd Frontra sees him and thinks what a relief, saying he supposes Javier is not something ordinary. He reflects that he is glad Javier is safe. The system window notifies that Javier has accomplished yet another stunning achievement tonight, and all of his past accomplishments and achievements have satisfied hidden conditions. Javier sees the system window and wonders what this is now, as it seems to be giving out quite a lot today. The system window notifies that the complement system is activated, and every achievement he earns leads to an honorary title of praise, each given title coming with its bonus skill. It further notifies that additionally, at midnight of every full moon, a certain amount of complement points will be awarded. The system window notifies a list of titles such as Snap, Crackle, Pop, Crusher of Bones, Resuscitator of Dead Estates, and he will make his face resemble an orc, among others. He wonders what these are, calling them titles and suggesting something cooler like Guardian of Cremo or Hero of Magentano. The system window responds that the titles of praise are named so they are suited to his face. He considers, come out here and say it to his face, comes on. Upon observing the system window, he reflects that when acquiring a title, it is accompanied by a skill, a positive aspect. Let them delve into the details. The system window discloses his identity as Toast, Cremo Lobster, with the title encompassing the entire Cremona region, including Cremo. The active duration of the title spans 120 years, and it yields a CP value of 6. The notification specifies that the powers conferred by the title can be activated within the region for which the commendation was granted for a duration of 24 hours. Moreover, it elucidates that the temporal and spatial parameters can expand or contract contingent upon his actions. Further information in the notification outlines the activation of title powers during combat scenarios where the opponent's mass exceeds his by 10 times or more. In such instances, Iron Stance is invoked, resulting in a twofold increase in damage dealt and a halving of damage received. He contemplates that this constitutes a substantial enhancement, speculating on the prospect of every title invoking such powers. He ponders the utility of CP and its applications while considering the rather unpleasant message box. He acknowledges that the message box might not divulge information, even if he were to request it politely. The notification conveys the intention to disclose information, but suggests a hesitancy, asserting that it might be inadvisable. Given the current circumstances, it deems the likelihood of receiving information improbable, akin to a missed opportunity. Seated in anticipation, he implores for information, urging for details. The message prompts him to persist in his supplication. Javier observes him and perceives the recurring behavior as peculiar. The notification clarifies that he can employ the accumulated CP to defy the laws of physics, thereby attaining absolute power and the ability to summon, with the ending as a spoiler. He is taken aback by the unexpected appearance of system notifications. After a while, Lloyd Fronteras sits to relax, and his brother Julian stands nearby. He expresses his exhaustion, citing a lack of sleep due to an ongoing investigation. Julian inquires about their knowledge regarding the perpetrator behind Sir Kyle's predicament. Lloyd tilts his neck back in a gesture of relaxation and conveys their lack of information. He mentions the apprehension of individuals engaged in coded messages with Sir Kyle, noting the ongoing use of a confession spell. However, he reveals a complication. These individuals are shielded by a protection spell, rendering the confession spell ineffective. Lloyd acknowledges that, due to this circumstance, he finds himself confined to the capital, compelled to wait patiently. Reflecting on the desire to conclude the matter swiftly and return home, he notes the lack of details in the book regarding the assassination attempt against the Queen. Anticipating that such information might be covered in the next season, he underscores the temporal discrepancy 3 years earlier than in the book, hinting at the potential for alterations in the future. Concerned about the changing course of events, he acknowledges the risk of rendering his knowledge of future events useless. Nevertheless, he finds solace in the recent acquisition of powers, expressing uncertainty about their utility but recognizing their timely arrival. Julian inquires about Javier's status and whether he is still subject to investigation. Lloyd responds, indicating that the Queen singled out Javier for a separate summons following his attainment of the rank of a sword master. This revelation astonishes Julian, prompting him to question the reason for his surprise. Lloyd clarifies that Javier was instrumental in apprehending Kyle, leveraging his newfound status as a sword master. Julian expresses his previous assumption that Javier received assistance from the Royal Guard. Lloyd challenges this perception, asserting that even 100 guardsmen would be no match for a sword master. Julian, now perplexed, seeks clarification on the implications of this revelation, prompting Lloyd to regard him with a peculiar look. Meanwhile, at the palace, Javier bows before Queen Alicia Termina Magentano. She remarks that recent events have allowed her to witness his unparalleled swordsmanship and the conjuring of a previously unseen aura sword. Noting his awareness of the current vacancy for the position of the captain of the Royal Guard, she issues a command for him to stand by her side and assume the role of captain of the Royal Guard from this moment onward. Meanwhile, Julian inquires about Javier's potential departure. On the other side, Javier requests forgiveness from Her Majesty. Lloyd Fronterer comments that he truly does not know Javier at all. On the opposite side of the conversation, Javier identifies himself as Baron Arcos Fronterer's knight and implores her understanding of his inability to leave his lord's side. She asserts that she is not asking but ordering him, emphasizing that disobeying her orders amounts to treason, a consequence of which he is well aware. Javier humbly requests one thing: permission to send a farewell message to his Lord Baron. She interprets this as an elegant expression of his preference for death over serving her. Javier appeals to her mercy, and she grants him permission to go, respecting his wishes. He expresses thanks to her and proceeds to leave. After a while, Julian summons Javier and inquires about the outcome of his meeting with the Queen. Javier assures him that he remains a knight dedicated to the Fronterer family, bringing joy to Julian. Meanwhile, Alicia Termina Magentano contemplates the Fronterer estate and observes that she appears to have encountered challenges with individuals from that region. Simultaneously, Lloyd Fronterer reclines on the grass, gazes at the status window, and contemplates exploring the additional skills bestowed by his titles. He peruses the details on the system window and discovers a title-related skill named Snap, Crackle, Pop, and Crusher of Bones, which he acquired for eliminating Newman. This skill grants him unconditional obedience from the subjects of the Fronterer estate. Lloyd contemplates altering his appearance to resemble an orc and questions the utility of the orc roar. He identifies Magentano as a suitable candidate to carry him and notes that having Queen Alicia's complete trust will shield him from accusations of treason, ensuring freedom from suspicion. Contemplating the aristocrats who faced repercussions due to his actions, he reassures himself that he remains immune to any consequences they may attempt to impose. Gazing at the bright full moon in the night sky, he recognizes that the designated time is drawing near. The system window informs him that the full moon is illuminating the night, bringing CP rewards for the 5 titles he holds, with the current CP tally standing at 22. Acknowledging this development, he anticipates the next step. The system window presents an option, notifying him that the ending spoiler enables the use of CP to preview the concluding scene of the storyline, with the requirement being 20 CP. It queries whether he wishes to utilize the ending spoiler. Reflecting on his current circumstances, he concludes that his only foreseeable future is one of comfort and contentment. Contemplating the potential downside of gaining excess weight from a cushy lifestyle, he decides to proceed and clicks yes to explore the ending spoiler. He finds himself transported into a dark place, expressing his unease at the eerie atmosphere. In an attempt to gain clarity, he initiates communication with the message box. Surrounded by flames flaring all around, he surveys his surroundings, recognizing the setting as the Fronterer estate. However, he is perplexed by the distorted appearance of houses and trees. Encountering numerous lifeless bodies, he questions the nature of this grim scene, pondering the implications of such an ending. Seeking confirmation, he calls out to anyone present and receives a response. Consulting the message box, he seeks assurance regarding the authenticity of this unsettling scenario and whether it signifies a genuine conclusion. In his quest for answers, he runs throughout the scene, questioning if his voice is audible. Witnessing a vision of his future self, he sits down and succumbs to tears while contemplating the fate of the Baron and Baroness. The future Lloyd Fronterer expresses regret, apologizing for not being able to protect anyone, and agonizingly questions the nature of this tragic conclusion. As he turned around, a multitude of locusts came into view, intensifying the ominous atmosphere. Javier maneuvers with his sword, launching successive attacks against the locusts. Observing this, Lloyd Fronterer wonders if Javier has successfully eliminated the threat. However, a new group of locusts approaches him, prompting a sudden transfer back to the garden. Lloyd calls upon the message box, seeking an explanation for what he witnessed and questioning the inevitability of those events. The message box responds, advising him to consider the potential losses if he chooses to doubt the information provided. Urgently, he runs from the scene, reflecting on the cryptic statement within the spoiler. Recalling the future Lloyd Fronterer's regretful words about coming a little earlier determines the urgency of the situation and the need for swift action. Contemplating the locust swarm, he believes he has identified the precise cause and resolves to reach the impending crisis as quickly as possible to address it. Meanwhile, Alicia Termina Magentano writes a letter and inquires about the fate of the entire Cremona region. Lloyd Frontier kneels down in front of her and asserts that it is indeed true. They must mobilize the troops and prepare for this unprecedented calamity. She expresses surprise at the suddenness of this revelation and implores him to provide more information about what will transpire. He elucidates that this is the machination of their adversary nation Esfahan, which is attempting to orchestrate a sequence of these monsters to undermine their strength. He reveals that they are eradicating the monsters in the eastern wilderness, thereby depriving them of their habitat. As a consequence, the monsters migrate westward, propelling another group of monsters in a domino effect. This, in turn, leads to these creatures spreading havoc in their eastern region. He speculates that, according to the book, this event will occur 3.5 years later. Furthermore, he opines that it should manifest much farther north than their Frontier estate. He contemplates that he is uncertain about why the timing and the details have changed, but there is no time to worry about that. She considers that there was certainly some movement from Esfahan in the eastern wilderness, and it is undoubtedly a possibility. She inquires how he is aware of Esfahan and their suspicious movements. He reflects on his brain's ability to think. She observes that, upon reflection, he has been withholding too much information from her. She asserts that, for her, he seems more suspicious than Esfahan. He licks his lip and discloses that he has some ties, a blood pact, in fact, with the orcs of the wastelands, specifically the Sand and Steel tribe. They send a carrier pigeon to inform him. Regarding his knowledge of Kyle's assassination attempt, he explains that he and the head of staff were engaged in a peculiar exchange. Upon noticing the suspicious looks they exchanged, he decided to follow them, witnessing the event. He further explains that concerning him absorbing the mana and destroying the surroundings, as she is aware, his guard and knight Javier is a genius with no equal. He states that they have been together since childhood, and he taught him the secret magic of self-defense. Being a genius himself, he possesses a decent command of those skills. She contemplates that it all makes sense, so why does it feel like he is making it all up on the spot? He thinks that she senses he is making this up right now. The system window notifies that the effect of Magentano has been activated. He will be carried by him, possessing Queen Alicia's complete trust. No matter how much others accuse him of treason, he will be free from suspicion. He observes the status screen. She declares that she shall grant him 500 in his direct command, the White Cavalry, and also 50 wizards for support. Since he has knowledge of the enemy's movements, he may have their command. He thinks about how generous it is and expresses his gratitude to Her Majesty. She inquires, asking him to thank her for what, and mentions that he should know more than anyone. She questions whether he thinks that trusting his baseless speculations comes without a price. He acknowledges that, of course, he knows very well that nothing in life is free. If they can successfully halt these monster attacks, he pledges to proclaim to the whole world that the foresight and resolution in this matter were all hers. He aims to restore the honor of the crown that was tarnished by the assassination attempt. She remarks that she has never encountered anyone as suspicious as him, but she appreciates that they understand each other. After a while, he and Javier depart from the location on horseback. Javier mentions that he is certain there is a reason for all this and requests him to take his time and explain. He increases the horse's speed and inquires if he understands. He confirms that yes, he comprehends the gist of what he is saying, so he encourages him to proceed. Lloyd Frontera asserts that they must arrive at the Frontera estate in 5 days, and he expects Javier to understand. He reflects that Javier can now easily overpower the army of a small nation. If they witness dozens of soldiers taken out by a single swipe of the sword, the enemy's morale will plummet. He acknowledges that morale is a critical factor. In this situation, their enemy is not human, lacks morale, and is driven by the pursuit of food. He recognizes that they do not fear death. Hence, Javier alone is not sufficient. Moreover, facing an attack from all around, 360 degrees, the intense firepower from 2 people won't be enough. He orders Pipodong to part ways at this point. Pipodong emerges from his jacket, and he requests Pipodong to meet him at the exact time, counting on him. Pipodong jumps from there and runs. He thinks he has a plan, and he anticipates his money-spinning Frontera estate. They both continue their journey without stopping and reach the top of a mountain. From there, they observe the town with locusts flying toward it. Lloyd Frontera notices the locusts and reflects that the earlier time frame was exceptionally brief. The farmers working in the fields also noticed the locusts, and one farmer inquired about what was happening. Lloyd Frontera calls out to him and urges him to stop standing around. He instructs the farmer to escape into their houses quickly. The farmers see Lloyd Frontera and he gestures, ordering them to bring him a lid for his pot, the largest one they can find. A locust breaks the palace window and enters the palace. Miss Emily sees the locust and asks what that thing is. It moves to attack her, but Marbella Frontera intervenes, attacking it with a chair and killing it. Just then, many locusts enter the palace, surrounding them. Marbella holds Emily's hand and instructs her to follow. They move to run from there, and looking out of the window, witness many locusts flying around. Marbella gets shocked and wonders what on earth is happening. Arcos Frontera arrives with his sword and inquires if she is all right. He suggests heading outside first, joining Sister Bayern and the other soldiers. He opens the door, and they all come out to see locusts devouring everything they find. Meanwhile, a group of locusts follows Bayern, and he runs to save his life. He instructs the soldiers to listen up, stating that they will assemble at the Count's residence and move out. Michael tries to free himself from them, urging them to get away from him. Bayern observes him struggling and looks towards the palace, thinking that all the villagers are in danger, but the Count is Count. He recalls a memory when Arcos Frontera expressed the hope that it would never come to this. However, if the estate were ever to be in peril, please save their people first before him. He believes that a lord and his knights exist purely for their people. Bayern moves to save Michael, attacking the locusts and killing them. He instructs Michael to get behind him. Meanwhile, Arash also attacks the locusts, killing them, and declares that the great orc warriors may face their last day, but they will uphold their oath to their brother's family. An orc warrior moves to attack the locusts. On the other side, Michael and Bayern also attempt to attack and kill them. However, suddenly, a locust comes to attack them, but Bayern saves Michael. They start biting his back. On the other side, many locusts target a poor lady who is trying to save her little child. The locusts overpower her and start biting everyone. An orc warrior attempts to save Miss Emily, but the locusts cover the sky and everything. They start biting the poor lady's hair, and she begins crying. Some locusts attack Bayern. Suddenly, some fire flares spread all over and burn the locusts. Lloyd Frontera arrives and suggests that they should be in a natural history museum. Javier strikes his sword on the lid of the pot, creating a flare. Lloyd Frontera inquires about how they achieved that, expressing excitement at the sound of the pot lid. He continues to hit the lid, attracting the attention of the locusts, who all move toward the sound. Arcos Frontera remarks about the echoing voice just now. Marbella Frontera agrees, confirming that it is indeed their Lloyd Frontera. Lloyd Frontera and Javier run from there, and locusts follow them. He remarks that they are incredibly scary. Javier agrees, stating it's as he said, they are chasing them along a regular trajectory. Lloyd Frontera expresses satisfaction, saying that's good. They will keep gathering them like this. He suggests doing a lap around the estate perimeter. He instructs Javier to hit harder. Javier strikes with full force, and the lid hits him in the face. Lloyd Frontera sees him, noting that it was too hard, and asks why he looks so happy, questioning why he is smiling. Javier moves to hit again, saying here comes the next one. Lloyd Frontera thinks that it was mentioned in the book that the locusts respond to this kind of loud sound, and they are falling for it. He tells Javier that the next one is Lacona, urging him on. Javier wonders if he is planning to help that area too, and is impressed by assisting a neighbor even in such a critical state. The system window notifies him that his approval rating by Javier increased by +3, and he earned 54 RP. Lloyd Frontera thinks he can't lose that water bill. Meanwhile, at the Viscounty of Lacona, locusts attack, destroying everything. Viscount Lacona tries to save himself and asks what these things are. Lloyd Frontera and Javier arrive there. Viscount Lacona sees Lloyd Frontera, who cautions him not to even think about being late with his water bills. Javier hits the lid of the pot, and the locusts start following the sound. Javier remarks that Lloyd Frontera's plan was to take them through buildings and concentrate the swarm even further. Lloyd Frontera denies having a plan. He laughs and admits that he just wanted to be impish, and it felt good. Javier thinks about what's wrong with him. The locusts start following them. Lloyd Frontera states that he thinks he can keep up with the Great Lloyd, and Captain Frontera is coming through. Javier advises him to save his strength, mentioning that shouting like that does not help them. Lloyd Fronterer remarks that he really does not see the bigger picture, explaining that calling like this lets them know who saved them. He laughs and mentions that he is going to milk this for all it's worth. Javier thinks there's something wrong with him. Lloyd Fronterer decides that it's enough, and now they move on to the Merritt's wetlands. Locusts come toward them, and Lloyd Fronterer notes that there is another swarm here. Javier moves away and instructs to hold the pot lid above his head at an angle, then fall back. Javier uses his master's sword to attack and cut the locusts. Lloyd Fronterer puts the lid on his head to save himself from the locusts' attack and employs magic to eliminate them. They still follow them. Lloyd Fronterer remarks that it's good they gathered them to a single spot and encouraged them to go just a little further. The horse also gets tired. Lloyd Fronterer expresses frustration, asking if Javier is exhausted and emphasizing that if he pushes him anymore, they will all be dead meat. He instructs Javier to prepare him back. Javier questions what. Lloyd Fronterer jumps on his horse, holds him from the back, and declares that he is his steed now, commanding him to run. Javier jumps from the horse with Lloyd Fronterer, and they start running from there. The locusts still follow them. Lloyd Fronterer calls Bangle and Hamang. They are full of water and start throwing water toward the locusts. Bangle uses the fire flare to attack and burn the locusts. Lloyd Fronterer commands them to spray shot for round 2. Hamang throws the water's second shot at them. He orders them to start round 3. He and Javier use their magic power collectively, attacking and burning the locusts. After killing them, they both feel relaxed. Lloyd Fronterer lies down on the ground and remarks that it was tough. Javier agrees, stating that they took care of most of them. However, there are still many left. Lloyd Fronterer acknowledges that at least a few thousand are left, but assures Javier not to worry. He mentions that the cleanup crew should be arriving right about now. Peepodong arrives with 300 elite warriors from the Sand and Steel tribe, along with 500 soldiers from the White Cavalry and 50 wizards. Lloyd Fronterer instructs them to leave the rest to the newcomers as they have another thing to worry about. Javier asks what else is there. Lloyd Fronterer explains the monster domino, emphasizing that it never ends with just one wave.